Hey, welcome to Dan's Model Works, and today we're looking at Tamiya's 148 scale U.S. Army staff car, and it says it's a model 1942. Now, if you go on Google or whatever your favorite search engine is, and you look for 1942 Ford sedan, you will discover that this is in fact a Ford. Not that they tell you that it's a Ford anywhere on the packaging or in the instructions or anything like that, but it is in fact a Ford. And this is part of Tamiya's, don't know if I really want to say attempt, because I think they have had some success with it, but basically their efforts to launch a new scale of armor and military subjects in 148 scale. And, you know, that does make a certain amount of sense. I mean, after all, we've got a major aircraft modeling scale in 148 scale. Why not have a lot of other military subjects in the same scale? And Tamiya really has been the number one company that's been pursuing this. So why did I pick up this one? I actually picked it up last summer. It is a kit that I kind of need for a diorama that I have planned. Who knows, I may actually eventually build it. Like I said, I picked it up last summer before I knew I was going to be sick this year and I was going to be broke all the time. So anyway, let's take a look at the box. It has a nice painting on the front. If we look on the side here, let's get a little bit more light on the subject. You can see 3-view painting of it in military colors, and then over here in civilian guise. And if we flip it around the other side here, we can see there's a picture of the model built up. And of course then we have this illustration that says the chassis is die cast, which is a little bit unusual. So let's open up the box and take a look inside. Now, before I open this up, I'm not going to tell you how much I paid for it, or not yet at least, but it was pretty pricey. So when I first opened up the box, I have to say I was a little shocked. So we open it up. Everything's bagged up. Well, you'd expect that. We have this sprue. We have the body. We have some clear parts. We have the chassis, which is mounted in this box here. The instructions. And in this bag, we have the decals. And you open it up and you're thinking, that's it? That's all that's in here? And no, there isn't a whole lot in there. So let's open up bags. We'll take a good look at the parts. Actually, before the parts, let's take a look at the instructions. And these are pretty much, to me, an old school where it folds out to be a really long sheet. On the front here, we have a black and white version of the painting on the front. We get Japanese, English, looks like French, and German here. And of course, then we have the warnings. Read before assembly, please don't eat the parts. And what tools you should be using. As we open this up, we have putting on your markings, which is a little strange, and you do that last. And then we have the assembly. Flip it over. And we have putting together the interior. This does come with a figure, which is handy. And moving down, you can see there's not a whole lot to this. Mind you, 148 scale isn't that large. And that does it for the instructions. First up, we have the decal sheet, and basically we have some US markings. I'm not quite sure what these two black marks here are, but they do look well printed. Registration really isn't an issue. I mean, you've basically got some white stars. So that is your decal sheet. Now on to the rest of the parts. Now, included in all of this massive packaging here, inside the box, as you probably saw earlier, is our chassis. And yes, indeed, it is in fact made out of die-cast metal and is fairly substantial. And right on the packaging, it says As you can see, 148 scale military miniature series die-cast chassis. This die-cast chassis provides realistic weight and extra impact to small size scale model. Well, whoop-de-doo. I didn't know that my models needed to be heavy. So I rather suspect that all this packaging is not necessarily to protect this die-cast chassis, but rather to protect the rest of the model from the chassis. Because let's face it, if this was rattling around inside the box, it could do an awful lot of damage. And I will probably put it back inside that packaging until I get around to building it. Now, on here, it says copyright 2007 Tamiya, so we know when they actually did the tooling for this. It is still available, which is why I'm reviewing it. So it's reasonably well detailed, but certainly there's no fineness of detail in here. I mean, the engine bay certainly could look a lot better from underneath than this. But mind you, if it's going to be sitting on a diorama, you're not going to be looking from underneath it anyway. So let's put that aside. Next up we have the clear parts. I'm not going to take these out of the bag because I want them to remain clear. The windshield is a separate molding, the side glass separate molding, the headlights are separate. The back end of it, though, is a tent. Pretty much like what we expect in old school AMT MPC models were. Except I'm assuming this will fit a whole lot better than those do. So they look quite nice. And then we have our one sprue of gray plastic. And we have the grille, front and rear bumpers. The hubcaps look nice. This is part of the underframe, the suspension. We have the front and rear seats, the hood. There is no engine. This is a curbside model, but most military models are curbsiders. Down here we have a driver, and let's see if we can focus in on him. Yeah, we can. We could get a little closer to the light. There we go. So some nice painting. This guy should look good. The wheels, or the tires I should say, are injection molded plastic, but once again, that's normal for armor models. They don't go in for separate vinyl tires. No flash that I can see, but you wouldn't expect that on a Tamiya kit. So no disappointments there. And then we have the body. And this is very well molded. Now, the hood is separate, so honestly, they could have given you an engine. It's not like they molded the hood in, and therefore, what was the point? The hood is separate, so they could have given you an engine. I think you can possibly see where my one quibble with this kit is going. But I don't see any seams or anything that's objectionable. Might need a little bit of light sanding there, although that's probably a seam that's on the real car. Just a word of warning, the bag that this part comes in has got a screw included in the corner of the bag. So don't just take the body out and fling the plastic, because you're probably going to need that sprue or that screw at some point. So that's it. That's all. That's all there was to this review. There wasn't a whole lot of parts in here. That brings me to my one quibble about this kit. I like the kit. I like the manufacturer. I think it was very well executed. What's my problem? Now, I'm sure you could probably find this kit online for less than I paid. I bought it at a local hobby shop. And whenever I can buy local, I try to. Because after all, if you don't buy your models at the local hobby shop, where are you going to buy your paint and your glue from? However, this was over $40 Canadian. And there's not a lot in this box for $40. I know it's Tamiya. I know they are the best in the business. But when I open up a kit by Revell of a Mini and the parts count is probably 4 times what's in here, I gotta say, well, did it really have to be that expensive? Now, just an example of how Tamiya could have and really missed the boat on providing extra value for our money is this part of the sprue. It's only connected by one gate. And this is where all the parts that would be chrome on a civilian version would be. So, honestly, it looks like it was engineered that they could shoot this part of the sprue separately. And to my way of thinking, they should have shot it separately. So, yes, you would have had this sprue with this part molded natural plastic, but then they would have had a second version of it that they would have chrome plated. And that certainly, I think, would have provided better value for the money. Especially because, you know what? You might need this as a civilian car. And as a matter of fact, I will need it for a civilian car. And you know what? If it's too expensive, leave it on the shelf. I chose to buy it. I need this subject for a diorama. I'm going to be building one of these days. And it was kind of one of these, well, if I don't buy it today, it might not be around in a year or 2 or 3 when I get around to building it. That's about it. I think it was probably a little overpriced, and you'll have to decide for yourself whether it's worth the kind of money that it's going to run you. Now, you know, secondhand models that you're buying off eBay, they can sometimes fetch much higher prices. But when it's first new released, what is causing this to be so expensive for Tamiya to produce? That's my question. Okay, so the model is good. I like the model. The price was a little steep. So, until next time, thanks for watching Dan's Model Works, and keep on modeling.